Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the LGS Pod, the Soccer Shorts companion podcast, where we try to shine a spotlight on local soccer culture and stories here in our hometown of San Diego, as well as across the US and around the world. I'm John Cross. I'm the founder of Soccer Shorts, and with me tonight, I was going to say as always, but you've been gone for a couple of weeks, so welcome back, Dylan. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's good to be back. How are things in my absence?
Well, sorry. Thought you were going to speak longer. I was taking a
Oh
little
no,
little
my
drink
bad.
there.
No worries.
Started doing that opening, and I felt a little bit of a frog in my throat
Oh, you're
there.
good. My mistake.
Um, well, we missed a show one of the weeks because we had
Oh,
a couple of guest hosts. We had people lined up, and then we had conflicts, and then people backed out, and so we didn't end up. And I just wasn't prepared to go by myself. And then last week I went solo, so uh, we kept it going at least one of those 2 weeks that you were out. But welcome back. It's nice to have a partner to do the show with and bounce ideas. I don't mind doing the solo shows, but it's hard when you're like you want to ask a question of someone or bounce an idea of it, and there's no one
right,
else there, and you just have to keep going. It feels a little bit
right.
like being a news reader as opposed
Yeah,
to having a conversation with someone.
makes sense.
All right, well let's jump into some news stories here. I don't know if you had heard. We had for our listeners who've been listening regularly, we did a profile of Dorking Wanderers a few episodes back, and saw in the news somewhere in the last few days here that Marc White will be suspended from the touchline for the first 6 games of the season for some inappropriate comments he made about females in general, but female referees, I think, in particular. So we had talked about he's a bit of a character, and certainly do not condone this kind of behavior, and his 6 game ban is warranted. But I think that's one of the things you get with Marc White as your coach, for better or for worse. But in terms of following and making a documentary, of course, that kind of controversy is probably gonna make for an interesting start of the season since he can't be on the touchline for the first 6 games.
I did see that, and I'm not surprised, and I'm almost certain that in the 6 or 7 years that I've been aware of Dorking Wanderers' existence, I'm fairly confident this is not the first time that I've seen that Mark White got a
No,
suspension for saying something daft, as he might say. Um, I'm always reminded in moments like this where famous people or famous adjacent people do something stupid of the great Charles Barkley when he said, "I am not a role model," and I think that is.
right.
I always try and keep that in mind when judging these professional athletes because they are. They didn't sign up to be role models. They're there because they're freak athletes. So, and in his case, it's not the athleticism, but I think the point stands. So yeah, I, I can't imagine this will be the last time Mark White uh, gets in the headlines for the wrong reasons.
No, I agree with you. And well, we'll go along slightly because this made me think of something in terms of inappropriate comments. You're familiar with Tom Bogert, the
Yes.
soccer journalist, covers a lot of things, but I think he recently left The Athletic. I can't remember. I don't know if he still is, but anyway, for those who know him, Tom Bogert for a long time had a very short kind of haircut, or at least short in the back. And right now he's rocking some pretty long locks in the back. And I was watching morning footy on Paramount Plus this morning as I was having some breakfast. And my wife comes in and sees him on the screen because he's talking and says, "Who's that?" And then made some kind of comment about his hair. And I made an offhanded comment about, like the old mullet thing of business on top and party in the back. And she says, "No, that's," and I think partly because of his mustache, she goes, "That's porn in the front and porn in the back." So,
Yikes. Well, that line between porn and the mullet was always pretty thin. So yeah, I can see where she's going.
yeah, she had a few other choice words that I won't share afterwards, but kind of kind of made me laugh, caught me off guard. But Anyway, just thinking that was coming through my head as we were talking about inappropriate comments here. Um, have you, Dylan, been watching any of the Club World Cup,
I have not.
or just
I mean, I've been paying attention ish, but I
yeah?
haven't been watching games. I'm kind of conscientiously objecting. Um, but
I
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I would be there with you. There's bits and pieces of I think two games I watched just because I was sitting down to eat or something at the same time. Watched a little of a LAFC match against don't remember who, but someone who was doing much better than LAFC, and a little bit of Seattle Sounders one time. But probably all told, I have seen about 25 total minutes of matches. Just like I said, I was sitting down, just put it on the background. But it's hard not to miss if you follow soccer news because they're talking about it
Right.
repeatedly. But I'm curious to get your thoughts because a lot of people talk about this Club World Cup being a trial run for the FIFA Men's World Cup next summer. And the last time the World Cup was here in 94, there were a lot of issues regarding heat. And we're seeing the same issues this time around. Of course, we have generally higher temperatures by a few degrees and some more extreme weather or humidity. But it was a huge complaint in 94 of playing games, especially in certain areas of the country, with noon, 1, 2 o'clock kickoff times at the absolute most brutal part of the day, all to accommodate a television audience and probably more money for advertising and everything else to hit your, European audience is certainly what they're going for. Prime time in Europe. So there's been a lot of complaints. I know the French Players Union and now FIFA Pro, the Global Players Union, have been urging FIFA to make some changes for next summer's World Cup. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that it's still an issue. I guess you could say a little surprised that they haven't made more of an effort to deal with it. But um, yeah, no, I think we all expected that that would be a problem, and I'm sure it will be again next summer because I don't have a lot of faith in the tournament next summer being run very well. I guess is what I'll say. So I fully expect it to be a disaster, especially with I'll say the geopolitical situation, just to keep it kind of general. But yeah, I don't have high hopes. It kind of sucks that the World Cup is coming to the United States for the first time in my lifetime. Like just barely missed the last one, or I was maybe like weeks old when it happened. So it kind of sucks that it's like happening, and we're doing like our absolute best to make it the worst World Cup ever. So we'll see what happens. But no, I don't have a lot of faith in that. From a sporting side, however, the Club World Cup has been pretty interesting. I've been very heartened by the success of non UEFA teams. I would really, really love if a non UEFA team were to win this tournament, even if it has to be Al Hilal. Like, I don't feel great about that, but I would still prefer that to like any UEFA team winning, just because I think if this tournament wants to be like legitimate from a sporting perspective in the future, the best thing that could happen is a non UEFA team winning the first one, because then all the UEFA
Right.
clubs will take it more seriously next time. So I don't know. It's been fun seeing like all the Brazilian teams do pretty good. We have a non UEFA club guaranteed in a semifinal because Fluminense and Al Hilal will play on Friday in a quarterfinal. But yeah, I'm kind of rooting for the non UEFA teams at this point. So Palmeiras against Chelsea on Friday, and then actually in about 40 minutes, Monterrey are kicking off against our good friends from Dortmund. But I will be
Right.
rooting. Was are they was Los Reyes? I think is what they call the team. But I could be no Rayados. That's it. So I'll be rooting for them tonight, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I might check out a little bit later, but like you, pretty much I really haven't been interested. Even when people talk about how great some of the plays, and I've seen some goal highlights and some plays, and it does look good. And I would like to like it. I'm just, you know, feels, as we said, long before this tournament started, like a cash grab. You're putting players, I would say, in danger by playing at the time of day that they're playing in, all to make more money. And it certainly doesn't strike that you have player or fan best interests at heart, unless you're only talking about fans who are in the UEFA time zones. Certainly not the
Right.
players, but
Right.
but
Well, and I mean,
fans maybe.
that's one thing about the World Cup that's always, you know, a sticking point, I guess, for players. Not that it will stop them, but even in prior World Cups where they weren't during, the global North's winter like we were in 2022, players playing at the World Cup is very disruptive to their club yearly cycle, right? Like
Yeah,
it basically means the season prior doesn't end because yeah, they might get a little vacation between the end of their club season and the start of like prep for the World Cup, but not really. And then that means also that the season after it starts late because they need their break and then the preseason to ramp back up for the season. That means that players who are going to play at the World Cup next summer, your Kylian Mbappe's, I'm struggling to think of German national players off the top of my head, but you guys like Joshua Kimmich at Bayern will definitely be playing at the World Cup next summer, assuming Germany qualifies. Um, they're gonna have we're going on 3 full seasons without a real break in between because you figure you have the season just completed, this summer tournament, next season World Cup, season after that. I just don't see a way that doesn't just totally ruin some careers in the long run. We're seeing guys like Raheem Sterling, who burst onto the scene at 16, was playing like a lot of minutes, a concerningly high amount of minutes before he was 18, and is now 30 and just completely burnt out. And obviously there are some exceptions, but you can't help but wonder like this is how that's going to affect these players. And so that's really my main kind of concern from a player perspective. With the World Cup, you have history there, and I recognize that you have to start something if you want it to become historic. But it just, on top of everything else, it feels like this is going to cause some real problems for players this year. I don't know. I don't see how we don't get another like Rodri completely blowing out his knee type thing this year. I just, yeah, it's going to happen. It's a question of when.
yeah, it's certainly a concern. I did see a report, someone Manchester City fan saying, really, best of both worlds. They weren't really thrilled about this Club World Cup, but now they got a ton of money for making it as far as they did, and they get an extra 2 weeks that they might not have had.
I
Well,
mean,
certainly wouldn't have had if they advance.
from I totally get it. Like, if you're not gonna go win it, which I'm sure they'd have liked to go win it, but if you're not gonna go all the way to win it, it's almost a waste of your time and resources to make it to the quarters and semis, or even the final if you're not gonna win. So it sounds shitty, but I totally get it.
Yeah. Well, last note on the Club World Cup, I did see a story. I didn't read the story, just the blurb, because I don't have a subscription to the New York Times, but there was an article in there about 90 US civil society groups and unions wrote to FIFA president Gianni Infantino to try to get him to use the leverage of FIFA's relationship with Trump and urge the White House to reverse policies it claims pose risks to the World Cup attendees and migrant communities. Now, again, not to get too much in the politics, but this writing was on the wall, and if you follow soccer, I mean, Infantino seems to be best buddies with Trump. Is this like too little, too late? These 90 groups coming in now, trying to get Infantino to use FIFA as some kind of leverage. Do you even think that's possible that anybody would be able to exert some kind of leverage to get some changes
I think
before
it's
next World
possible
Cup?
that somebody could have leverage to get some changes. I don't believe that somebody is Johnny Infantino, though. No, I don't. I wouldn't say it's too late, just because like we're. I know it's surprising and horrifying to say we're still not even 6 months into this administration. So I think it's a little unfair to say it's too late. It's definitely too little. He's not going to do shit. Qatar had everything they said they weren't going to do. Like the alcohol was incredibly restricted. Like they were arresting people for having rainbows on their shirts. Like, did FIFA do anything about it? No, I don't think they did. And I think especially, and I don't know, I'm getting a little like jumping on some assumptions here. My guess is if Johnny Infantino even hinted at trying to strong arm this administration with the World Cup, guys like Donald Trump and JD Vance would just start talking about how soccer is a commie sport and we don't want it anymore.
Of course.
Like, so yeah. I just don't see how like that would work for anybody involved.
I agree with you there. I don't see. I mean, that's like, kind of close the barn door after the horse is out. But last kind of news-related item before we get into some of our normal standard segments. Did you see it? And I'd like to get your thoughts that the NCAA proposed allowing Division I college athletes and staffers, coaches, everything to bet on pro sports. And this is, it has to be approved by Division II and Division III and all these things. But within a few weeks here, we will probably know whether this actually passes or not. And while this is just a general Division I NCAA issue that they're tackling here at their summer meetings, for us and looking at soccer with the House settlement and the potential changes of college soccer and maybe falling under U.S. Soccer's umbrella, and in essence, since these people can be paid, they are professional athletes. So I don't understand how the NCAA can say, yeah, if you're a Division I college athlete or coach or everything, it's okay to bet on pro sports, when in essence, you are going to be paid. You are going to be professionalized moving forward. How does that work?
I think what's more happening here is the NCAA, due to some recent legal cases and developments, has almost no power anymore to like rule over the financial domain as far as college sports go. And I think that they are doing things like this because they know they can't stop it anyway. So they're trying to posture as if it was something they were good with the whole time. They did the same thing with the NIL money, because once that court case came down, there was nothing they could do to stop it. So all of a sudden, everyone was acting like it was something they were always on board with.
Right.
And so I suspect that's more what's going on there than anything to do with them having thought through how that would functionally look.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see, again, in terms of soccer, in terms of college athletics, and the things that happen over these next couple of months, because all this is supposed to be sorted out in some way by the time the 25-26 school year rolls around, which is, I mean, we're talking really, it's more than a month away, but weeks, right? Yeah. We're not really talking many months here. So we'll be following that and seeing how that plays out and how the college soccer scene plays out on both the men's and the women's side as we get into this 25-26 season. Okay, let's shift over to some San Diego news, because our summer of soccer with our lower leagues is just about come to an end here. We'll kick it off with USLW, as we mentioned several episodes back, that we, for the first time in San Diego, had a USLW entrant and a whole new Southern California conference. They just had 5 teams, and the SoCal Dutch Lions were our entry. They play up in Carlsbad. I think they were at, I think they're based in Carlsbad, but I think they were playing at San Diego Academy. And they end up finishing third. They had an upset of FC Capo, which is one of the strongest teams, which FC Capo didn't actually win the division. They were edged out by another team, which I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Santa
I'll have to see
Clarita
if
Blue something.
Santa Clarita
Blue
Blues,
Heat.
also
Blue
a
Heat.
very good team. Yeah.
Blue Heat it is.
So they will be making the playoffs. So the USLW will be entering their regional playoffs, which I think there's 16 teams. I think they take 4 winners from each of the different conferences. So the West, and I don't remember if they use divisions or conferences. I wish all the leagues would be consistent about this stuff, but there are 4 subgroups in the West, and the winners of each of those subgroups will be playing each other to get a Western representative, and then each of their other 4 areas of the country, and then that will sort out a national champion here over the next couple of weeks. But I think for their very first season in the league, that's a respectable showing there, finishing 3rd out of 5 teams. And we'll talk a little bit more about USL later, but I'll be very interested over the next couple of years to see if this pool of teams in USLW grows or not.
Yeah, I mean it seems like they've been expanding, pretty consistently. So I would think so. Yeah, I'm pulling up the bracket here. I don't see them scheduled, but I don't know. It's a little unclear to me what's what. So
yeah, they should have finished their last game this last weekend.
Oh, so you said they did not make the playoffs?
Correct. Did not make the playoffs. Only the top team.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. I see. Okay, and so they're playing. They're playing Stockton Cargo, who they have a men's team as well. I think in USL too. Actually, it's St. Mary's High School, funnily enough, in Berkeley, where I don't go there, but I know a lot of people playing. I know a lot of people who went there, so it's fine. But anyway, sorry, I was just trying to figure out the schedule there.
No, that's fine. And then in our other league that has been very popular in San Diego, in fact, if you listen to one of our other shows, we talked about the history of the WPSL and how it started with, one of the San Diego teams at that time, the Auto Trader team, and then which eventually became San Diego Sea Lions. They helped form the WPSL back in its inaugural season in, God, I can't remember, 89 now, somewhere, or maybe it was 98. Maybe I'm getting those reversed. But it was, pre-2000. So this league has been around a while and has had a strong presence in Southern California, especially in San Diego. We had a new team this year, the San Diego Dons, that were playing at Cathedral High School. And they kind of had not so much a slow start, they had a delayed start. They weren't into games right away with all the other teams, so it was hard to know. And then they just had a bunch of games over the last couple of weeks, basically 2 games a week here, and they ended up finishing on top of the league for the WPSL. I don't know if I guess it's the Southern California division, or SoCal South, I think it is in WPSL. But they ended up just eking out. They tied on points with another team, but they had the tiebreaker, which was due to there were, I think, one head-to-head meeting where they took that match. And so congratulations to San Diego Dons. Again, brand new team in the WPSL and are headed to the WSL playoffs, which I think WSL for their first round start with 32 teams. So quite a few more teams in the WPSL than there are in the USLW. And then if we switch over to the men's side, we do have one representative in USL2, that is City SC. And they've not finished. They have 3 games left. So USL2 still runs for about 2 to 3 more weeks. So they have 3 games, and they're currently in 5th. There are 9 teams in the league. They are 4 points off the lead with 3 games left. So be interesting to see how they finish up. Also, their first year in USL2 in the Southwest Conference. And then finally, in UPSL news, we finished the playoffs this last weekend. So we have, again, Southern California conference in the premier division of UPSL. It's mostly San Diego teams. We had I would say, a bit of a surprise based especially on the league standings. I know from our friends over at San Diego Punto Football, and they cover the SD Enters matches, and SD Enter has consistently been one of the top teams in the UPSL in the division for the last few years. And they did make it to the final, but they were edged out by, again, City SC. So this is City SC's 2 team. Their 1 team plays in USL2. So this was their 2 team. They finished 5th coming into the playoffs, won their 3 playoff matches. I think it was 3. Won their 3 playoff matches, and now are headed to the UPSL national tournament as the representative from our corner of the country. So
Very cool.
Any thoughts on all of that?
Well, they have youth teams like all the way down pretty young, right? City SC does.
I think so, yeah.
So that's theoretically a pathway all the way from, youth to, I guess, pre-professional. But if you're competing on a national stage at that point, you figure those guys are going to have the chance to, pursue further careers if that's what they're wanting to do. So that's pretty cool for San Diego's youth. I know with the whole Right to Dream thing coming in, that'll probably throw a monkey wrench in all of that. But I like to see clubs kind of committing to have that structure the whole way through. So good for them. That's you like to see that pay off.
Yeah, and it's nice we got at least 2 local teams that have moved on to the national brackets. And we'll see how they do, because again, this is one of those ways you can qualify into the US Open Cup. So it'll be nice to follow them and see. And I don't know if they're ever going to be in a position to host a match. I'm pretty sure City SC, their first match is away up in LA, especially as they were a 5th seed coming out of the conference. And I'm sure a lot of their seeding, once they get out of that, probably goes to teams that were ranked a little higher to get the home matches. So it'll be interesting to see how that, and we'll keep giving updates and see how they do. And our last bit of San Diego news, I did not mention this last week because I forgot. It was actually on our rundown, I think from 2 weeks ago. But Dylan, were you aware that it's now out, a podcast? It's called SDFC Behind the Flow. That is following, it's been following, it was a behind the scenes kind of thing about how SDFC, all the work that had to be done to get ready for this opening season. When were you aware of this, for one?
I was not.
No. It's done. I can't remember the name of the group right now, but I am intimately aware of this, and I just got a text actually this morning saying the new 4th episode is out. I have not listened to any of the episodes yet, but the 4th episode is about the supporter groups, and at the time they were filming, and it looks like at the time a lot of this episode is covering is back when I was president of the union. So the person who was the local producer and did the interviews with me said I was in there quite a bit. And frankly, because we started a little bit late, I was skimming through the transcript just to see, what they were covering. And I was a little bit surprised at some of the stuff they had in there. So haven't had a chance to listen to it, but that's an episode I might listen to. I usually don't like to go back and listen to myself when I do things, but I'm curious to see how they portray the formation of the supporter group.
Well, I will not be listening to this podcast. I feel like it would be hard not to take it as kind of patronizing to listen to the explanation of how my favorite team got put out of business. So I don't see myself tuning in for that one. I would hope they'll give a fair and balanced representation of everything that happened, but this is, for all intents and purposes, state media, so I don't expect that they would posit anything that would make the club look bad necessarily. So I don't know. Let me know how that turns out. The last thing I'm going to say, though, is it still blows me away that they're leaning this hard into the flow thing. Like, whenever I see the jerseys around town, I'm like, oh, those look kind of nice. And then I see the back where it says State of Flow, and it just, like, I literally can't help but laugh to myself. It's ridiculous. And but behind the flow genuinely sounds like it could be a middle school sexual education, like, video for girls. Like, I cannot believe, like, there just must not be any women with, like, decision-making voices in this organization, or at least not any with shame, because, like, every time it comes up, like, my partner Gabby is like, they're still, like, doing that. Like, it just, I don't know, it blows me away that they're so committed to the flow thing. I just, it's one of those words that, like, it just kind of gives me the heebies. Like, I don't know. It doesn't. Anyway.
Well, people know my thoughts very well on the whole situation and how things played out, but I'll be curious to see how they portray it. I may just read the transcript. I don't know if I'll actually go back and listen to it, but I was just kind of skimming through it till I found me, because it just lists as, like, speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker whatever, and then I had to figure out which one I was, and then I kind of skimmed through to see which quotes, I guess, that they use from the interviews from me, and how it was contextualized, because I was fairly certain there was going to be a lot they wouldn't use. So we'll see how that comes out. That would be an interesting, for me, be an interesting one to kind of pick apart. But we'll go back and, like I said, I'll probably read the transcripts and check those out. Switching gears, though, let's talk about the Jägermeister Cup first. We did finish basically the third round, even though there's some straggler games here and there. One more round to go before we figure out who's going to make it to the knockout phase. What are your thoughts so far with the Jägermeister Cup?
It's still, like, conceptually, I really like it. It's a little hard to, I don't know. It's a little hard, not only with the way that the groups are kind of, like, we've talked about in a previous episode how 2 out of 7 teams, or, like, 1 out of 7 teams, 1.5 out of 7 teams is, like, a little bit harsh, especially when you're only playing 4 games.
Right.
And now, especially with the way in these late, like, I feel like it was the case in rounds 1 and 2, but I feel like round 3 is a lot more, like, chopped up. And I guess that's just because the games are fundamentally going to be imbalanced. And I'm even looking, there's still some teams that only played 2 games here.
I think they have a 4th of July match.
Las Vegas
has done all of theirs.
All 4, and in doing so have actually guaranteed the worst they could do is second. Unless, well, I guess there's some funky tiebreakers, but there's only 2 teams that can catch them. So for teams 4 through 7 in Group 1, it's functionally over because they can't catch Vegas. So I don't know. That's interesting. The kind of chopped up rounds make it a little tough. I guess I get it, but I'm looking forward to when everybody's played all 4 games and we can get into the knockout rounds and kind of see, like, how did this shake out. I think it's just a little bit chaotic. My gut tells me that we're going to look back and think, like, oh, this didn't really work very well. But like I think we said when we first talked about this, for me, the key thing is just, this is the first year of having both divisions, right? Like Championship and League One. Just have the cup, get it done, declare a winner, go off without a hitch. It doesn't really matter if the format is funky, because if you can get this thing off the ground in 10 years when it's, like, a thing people care about, no one's going to give a shit that the groups looked weird in year 2, So, press on. The show must go on, even if it's making me a little uncomfortable at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. The single best thing about this tournament is its championship teams against League One teams. I
Yeah,
mean, not
it
against.
ha
They're combined. They're
right,
they're all
right.
together in a tournament. By far, that's the best thing. And I think, as you said, it can only get better in the long run, especially
Mhm.
as new teams come in, which we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. But as new teams come in, I we talked about it a few episodes back coming into the first weekend, and I was just unsure. 7 teams in a group, you're only playing 4 games. And then after the second round, I was like, okay, this is interesting. I kind of like it. But then after this weekend, I was really trying to look and do some of the permutations. And what I was finding that I had to do instead of a normal grouping, which we know they can't do because it's unbalanced with teams in each league, unless you're going to do a straight up knockout tournament, which actually I think I wish they would really go to. But in in this kind of group play, I was looking to try to figure out, like you said, Las Vegas. All right, well, who can catch them? Well, I mean, technically, you could just add up, they could get potentially 3 points, but who are they playing? Because that also makes a difference on whether someone might be able to catch them or not, even in some of those other places. And it's, it was like, I felt like I was doing so much work trying to figure out. And then, like you mentioned just a couple minutes ago, I just like, okay, just get me to the knockout round. Let me know who wins. I'm not sure I've, I'm not sure I've loved the group play as a tournament, but I've loved seeing the matchups between
Mhm.
championship and League One teams. And in fact, every time there's, most times, I can't say every time, but quite frequently, when I know that's coming up, I specifically go and look for a League One and a championship matchup to go and watch that, as opposed to just a championship, you know, both teams being in the championship or both teams being in League One. So that I've enjoyed to be able to see that cross divisional play.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm just looking through the tables here, and I think a lot of it's actually kind of interesting. A lot of the criticisms we had before the first round even started have come to pass. I recall one thing we said was how important the first game would be, just because with all the chaos and scheduling, and just a really good example of that, Group Two, which looks like the American Southwest. Um, Texoma, El Paso, and Union Omaha have all only played 2 of their 4 games and are eliminated already because they didn't win one of their first 2 games. Which, fair enough. You could say you should have won one of your first 2 games, but it's just it's the lopsidedness that makes it kind of hard to swallow it. Like if they'd all played 3 games or all played 2 games, but the fact that so much of their group has already played 3, it just makes it a little unbalanced. And if you look, the point I wanted to get to, if you look down the groups, the top 2 and 3 in most cases are teams that won their first game. The only instance that's not true, and in fact, funnily enough, the top 3 teams did not win their first game, is Group 6, which looks like really the only.
Which is wild. That group is absolutely wild.
Well, I was going to say going into, they're not even done with round 3. 2 of these teams still need to play. This could really be the only solidly competitive group going into the final day. I don't know. We'll see how that game between, I'm presuming, Naples and Tampa Bay plays out. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, one of the things I looked at, which as I was skimming through this and trying to look up matchups, it was Group 3 that frustrated me because I'm looking at the standings and there's 6 teams in the group. The bottom 2 have been eliminated. Forward Madison's in fourth, have not been eliminated, but FC Tulsa's in third and they have been eliminated. And I think that's one of those things that because of if certain combinations of things happen, depending on this last game and the teams that have played each other, that technically you have a team that's in third place that has been eliminated, but a team that's in fourth place that still could possibly make it. And that's where I was like, okay, I'm done.
Is it even worth the
Like just
time to explain how
just
that worked out? I don't even understand that.
right. And I'm sure it has to do with the groupings, right? Because you're not playing everybody in the group. You're just however they
Right.
did the draw, and you picked 4 opponents that you were going to play. And I'm sure it's just because of the nature of who's left and who's playing each other that it means your third place team is already eliminated, but your fourth place team technically can still make it. And that was
Oh, I
just
see. Right, because Madison in fourth, their game is against Birmingham. So if they beat them, they'd be level on points and have the head-to-head. Whereas FC Tulsa already lost to Birmingham, I guess, and are playing it. Okay,
I'm guessing, yeah.
Wild. Yeah. All right, fair enough. Well, like we said, let's come back in the knockout rounds and see how we're talking about it.
Right. All right. Speaking of knockout rounds, we're back to the U.S. Open Cup next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. We've got the quarterfinals, 2 matches each day. Any thoughts? I know you kind of tuned out, but I'm going to still, as we're going through it.
Let me pull it up real quick.
We've got, let's see, the 2 matches on Tuesday are going to be Chicago at Minnesota, and then Austin at San Jose. And then on Wednesday, Red Bulls in Philadelphia, and then DC United at Nashville.
I haven't really been following the MLS at all this season, so I just don't know how these teams.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you who's strong right now.
Yeah,
at all.
So I don't. I don't know. Shrug, I guess.
All right. Well, we will try to look for next week, at least for some potential interesting storylines. The one that jumps out at me, only because I brought it up on a previous episode, is if Chicago makes it all the way through and wins, they'll be the first team in the modern era, from like 95 on, to be 5-time champions. So that's I don't think we've had anybody who's been more than 5-time champions in the entire history of the Open Cup.
That sounds right.
I don't think anybody's had 6. I think we've had several at 5, and usually they were clustered together, like they were a powerhouse dominant team, like around a decade or so, where they just were in the finals all the time and would win most of the time.
Well, especially in the pre-professional era, if a team was good, they had no reason to separate because nobody was going to get paid elsewhere. So.
All right, and for the National Amateur Cup, we've been following. We are finally the Midwest region, which is Region 2. They're down to their final match, which is coming up, and I have to pull it up to look and see who made it, because I can't remember off the top of my head. But we do have our Division 1 champion, our Division 3 champion, and our Division 4 champion, which is us in the Western region. So as soon as we get that final taken care of in Region 2, then we will have those 4 teams head off to the National Amateur Cup finals. That will be, I think, in Minnesota this year in early August. And that winner will earn the first berth into the U.S. Open Cup proper for 2026.
Very exciting. So that means that the 2026 Cup will have technically started before the 2025 edition ends, right?
And that has been the case for the last few years, yeah.
Okay, that's fun. I like that.
We usually don't get the final. I think the U.S. Open Cup final is October 1st this year. And then mid-September are the semifinals. So, yeah, we will know some of the representatives and from our summer leagues, some of the winners there. Well, I should say we won't know for certain because I don't know when the final agreement for what the 2026 tournament is going to look like. They tweak it every year with U.S. Soccer. So once they make that final decision, we'll understand what the allocations are to the NPSL and USL2 and those leagues and how many reps they get in. And then typically, if I remember correctly, it's been those leagues that then get to decide how to allocate those, which is usually if you get 8 teams, then it was the final 8 teams in your national tournament, right? So we'll see how that plays out and who gets berths from the lower league teams. We should start to get some early representation of what the 2026 U.S. Open Cup, at least on the amateur side, is going to look like as we get into the fall.
Very exciting. The best part of the Open Cup.
All right, and we'll close out with some lower league news. One I was excited about talking about just because we finally have some confirmation, and that's this team in Boise, Idaho. that has been rumored for it feels like years. But they are looking to start in League One, I believe, in 2026, I think. I have to
Cool.
remember. But we're getting, which is going to be great for League One in USL, of having more teams, right? I think they're
Yeah.
up to 14 this year. Already there's some penciled in to start, so that Division One is starting to fill out. Who knows what'll happen in terms of colleges, right? If any teams jump, I guess, to USL, or even if we start a new Division Four-ish kind of league with U.S. soccer in terms of colleges. But there's the potential really to start rounding out this Division Three in the men's side for soccer. So I was excited to see the Boise club. I don't know, did you get a chance to see the
I
announcement
did.
or the
Yeah,
crest?
I did. I like Boise. I visited. Shit, when was that? It was in 2017 when I went out for the solar eclipse. I spent a couple nights in
Ah,
Boise,
okay.
and I really like Boise. It was a cute little town. It's always kind of been on my radar because I grew up a college football fan, and any other college football fans will be aware of Boise State's blue field. It's hard
Right.
not to kind of have that on your radar. So yeah, that is to say, I always kind of keep tabs on just what's going on with sports in places that I like that I visited. So Boise's one of them, and I don't think they really have much professional sports there. Maybe a minor league baseball team or hockey or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a great little city. I think it's like 400,000 people, with a really good sports culture, and I think they'll probably embrace this team pretty strongly. And I really like the way they've gone with the naming of it with athletic club. I like that direction. That's like a European kind of import that I really like because it opens the door to other sports being under that umbrella, first of all. But also, I like when teams make an effort to have, like, the men's team, the women's team, the youth teams. It's all one
Right.
club. It's one team, right? And I just feel like the kind of athletic club branding kind of helps to foster that um, identity, if that's the direction they want to take it, which I hope it is. So anyway, yeah, I really loved their unveiling. I think Boise is a fantastic city for a lower league soccer team. I think they'll embrace it well, and I think it would be a super fun away day if I were supporting a team in League One. So yeah, I
Yeah.
really love that. Yeah, we'll plug for Boise there.
I know their brand launch took some shit online. There are a lot of people not entirely happy with it, and you know, it doesn't strike me really strongly one way or the other. But I know a lot of people felt like these brand reveals and crest reveals and all the explainers that they do. There's a lot of people who just jump like it's just a gimmick at this point.
Yeah.
But when I read those, especially for Boise, I mean, I did not know that they have a huge Basque population in Boise until now, and that was an element that was incorporated in this badge. And I actually like those explainers, and especially when those explainers, when let me say the audience for those explainers is really the community, in this case of
Mm-hmm.
Boise, not the
Yeah.
rest of the world.
Right.
That I like, and I like reading them to get this little idea of, oh, okay, this is, I get what everything kind of symbolizes. And this is one of the things I think the USL does very well. And I think it's what's allowed them to stay around while Major League Soccer has really dominated the landscape and continue to grow and still be successful. And I think really strengthening their position because they made it was intentional for them to go and connect with their communities. And I think it shows in these crests and badges that they reveal. Whether I like it or not is irrelevant because I don't live in Boise. I'm not from Boise. But if it resonates with the people of Boise, especially strongly resonates with them because it really connects with their community, to me that's fantastic. And that's what we need more of in soccer. We need less, I'm going to pick on our local club here, less SDFCs and more, yes, it's Athletica Boise, but like this is a connection to your community here. You can
Yeah,
see it. There
100%.
is an effort made to connect strongly to the Boise community as opposed to try to be a global brand, which I
Yeah.
think is a huge mistake if your role is to be a global brand first and then your community is secondary. You got to put your
Well,
community
yeah.
first.
And in MLS, it makes sense because they're 1/30th of a global brand. They're not a community focused club, despite what they will tell themselves and their fans and whatever. Um, but yeah, I made the same point, or I don't remember who I was talking to. It was probably Weston or somebody. But like, whatever you think of the athletic club Boise branding, name, logo, literally all of them are better than any MLS club reveal in the last 10 years. Period. Full stop. Because they're all just city name FC or FC city name with like some
Right.
generic ass colors and a bad explanation of those generic ass colors. And so
Right.
like, yeah, I didn't know Boise had a Basque population. That's awesome. That's super cool. That's makes me even more interested to like learn more about Boise than if they just called it, Boise FC and then made it blue
Right.
and orange because that's Boise State and everybody knows the blue field, and or like
Right.
brown and yellow because that's this college or what, like or Idaho State or whatever. And it like in just that brand reveal, they've got me more interested in Athletic Club Boise or Boise the city than really any MLS club reveal has in a long time. Granted, I'm very biased, but back when MLS club brand reveals were interesting, I actually had a lot of time for MLS. I was a relatively interested Earthquakes fan, back when before the whole like new era of like
Right.
boring ass team names. Anyway, so that's my rant.
All right. Well, that's Boise, but let's get to the big one that was announced. Well, I should say Michael Batista from Hudson River Blue broke the story. And we don't know if it's a story yet. It's a hint of something, but it sounds like the New York Cosmos are coming back and will be playing in USL League One next year. Now, it depends what you mind being Cosmos, but Cosmos the name. But it looks like this identity of the Cosmos is coming back and we'll be playing in USL League One next year. So, did you hear about this and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I did, but it was really unclear to me if it was like anybody who was previously involved with the Cosmos or if somebody just purchased the
Yes.
name rights or are they going to be playing? They used to play on what, like Coney Island or something like that. Like, is it still going to be
Well,
like that or?
this new version will be playing in New Jersey. So there, a few months back, there was a New Jersey group that was started like New Jersey Professional Soccer, something bland, and they were looking to bring USL League One team, and I think a women's team too, if I remember correctly. But they were looking to come in, and one of the people who is heavily involved with this, from my reading of stuff, and especially from the reporting by Michael Batista, was directly involved in the rebirth, NASL, so back in the teens of the New York Cosmos. So there is strong connections, and I've seen other reports come up of some patents and trademarks lapsing, not being renewed over the like in June here, whenever the renewal time was, and then new ones have popped up. So some have been kept, others popped up. So the speculation that I have seen is that there is probably going to be a newer branding, may just be called the Cosmos, might not even throw the New Jersey in there or New York or anything. I mean, we know there's a lot of crossover anyway between, New York teams that are in New Jersey and in all sports. We've seen that happen. So it'll be interesting. I don't know how the dynamics will play out there, but I'm really more intrigued just in the fact that the Cosmos as an identity, as a brand, could be coming back and be in the USL. And already I've seen all kinds of shit talk online of people like, can't wait. If it is coming to USL League One, unless they totally botch it somewhere along the way, I don't see how it can't be good for USL in the long run, especially with looking to implement promotion relegation, and then just having that identity, having a team that others also love to hate, that's been a rival. And it certainly, I think, will bring a level of interest and raise awareness, especially within the region in the Northeast, that would be different if it was just New Jersey professional soccer.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, it'll kind of, like you said, it will come down to how they handle it. But yeah, I don't know. People would just want to be angry about things, and I think they take it out on whatever's newest. So I don't know. I feel like anybody who actually has put any thought into it would be very excited to hear that the Cosmos might be returning to the U.S. soccer landscape in some capacity. So hopefully a good one, a respectful one, but we'll see.
That'll be good. I don't see. I mean, it adds, I think, a little more strength to the whole USL brand. Although I don't like to focus on leagues, I'd rather focus on individual teams. But I also really hope that as we start getting more and more of these teams and looking to promotion, relegation in USL, that they can start to get rid of some of these structures they've had in place, like territorial rights and some other things that really, this franchise model that really limits um, uh, the growth of the sport. I think we're at a stage where we can start taking some of these training wheels off, and we have some good structures in place, and let these good, well-run clubs get a chance to rise to the top based on merit rather than size of the pocketbook of the owner.
Yeah, and I think too that if the USL is paying attention, which it kind of seems like they might be, just because they've made some good decisions lately, I would say. I think it would be clear to a keen observer that while the idea of territorial rights is to protect the investment of the owner, and I get that to an extent, if you look at the game in the U.S. Open Cup this past year in Chattanooga,
right?
They would both make so much more money if they were playing each other every year. It just territorial rights. I get it in theory, but I think in practice, in a sport like soccer where you're going to have multiple tiers, it's very limiting because these crosstown rivalries, the derbies, whatever people want to call it, like that is where it's at. Like soccer fans who are even tangentially aware of the world, like can tell you what the biggest rivalries in the world are. And for the most part, they're intercity rivalries. Not all of them. You've got your Barcelonas and Madrids, and that's more of a, independence versus kind of imperialist sort of thing. So whatever, but your Bocas and Rivers, your Celtic and Rangers, like obviously Chattanooga FC and Red Bulls aren't there yet. They could get there, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like the USL has been making some wise decisions lately, and I think if they were paying attention, they would be realizing that, hey, wait a minute, like that game in Chattanooga is something we need to be replicating, not squashing.
Right. I mean, we see this especially in college sports in all kinds of levels, but USC, UCLA, right? Just to look at something.
Cal Stanford, I grew up with.
Right, Cal Stanford.
And they're not even that close.
Right, and you just get these closer rivalries that you can do. I mean, look at MLS, like LAFC and the Galaxy, right? You get these stronger rivalries, especially when they're close and you get to play each other a lot, right? It's going to be part of your routine playing them. They're not, an outlier kind of match that you have. And I think that only will strengthen the entire league in the long run and help it grow. And hopefully, I mean, I would love to see some more regionalization, even at high levels, and even have a playoff based on the regionalization, but have stronger regional clusters of teams that play each other to really help develop those rivalries, limit transportation. And we talk about that all the time in lower leagues. I personally, and this conversation for another time, but would love to see that kind of even inch its way up into maybe Division II or Division One. And that's probably a conversation we should have on the show another time. Look at some of those models that people have because our country's so huge,
Right.
right? It's not a small country. It does present some unique challenges if you want to have a single national league with 20 teams in it.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think there's plenty of ways, models you can look at around the world. And, Spain, France, Germany all have, at some point, I think in Spain and France, it's the third tier is heavily regionalized,
Yeah.
It's doable. The FA just has to be on board. So, yeah, I think
Right.
you're right. That's a discussion for another time. But
All right. So the last thing as we get to, our wrap up stuff here, mentioned some of these last week. I don't know if you had come across this at all, Dylan, but S.A.H, the Society for American Soccer History, they've been putting out some links and links to old videos, basically, that have been refurbished. And they have what I saw, I think it was this morning or yesterday, that the earliest soccer film with sound, it's a 1927 ASL league match. It's only about 4 minutes long, bits and pieces. As I saw someone say online, the soccer is not terribly pretty to watch, and the camera work doesn't really capture the game super well. But you can hear the crowd yelling. You can hear the referee's whistle. You get to kind of get a sense of the size and the scope of what some of these soccer leagues looked like back in 100 years ago. We're talking 98 years ago, but nearly 100 years ago for these matches, and not me, I'm not part of it, but Society of American Soccer History has from wherever unearthed some of these, and some of them are held at different college repositories, but they've made some links to them, and it's really cool to go back and take a look at them. A couple weeks back, they did one that was from 1921, I believe, of an Italian team, one of the Milan teams, I think, coming in to play a team in San Francisco. So they had some excerpts. Actually, the person who directed it was Frank Capra, the director of It's a Wonderful Life. So, and a very young Frank Capra actually directed that little silent 1921 soccer film about an Italian team coming on a U.S. tour. So again, right, themes, we keep talking about themes on this show. European teams coming to the U.S. for tours to make some money has been a thing for more than 100 years. This is not new stuff, that has happened. It's just different a little bit now, but the same idea. Come into the U.S., make a little money.
more things.
But if you get a chance,
I'll check it out.
But if you get a chance, go to the S.A.S.H website, S-A-S-H. Go to the S.A.S.H website and check out some of these videos. They've been circulating in some of the social media circles, but I find them, as someone who likes history, I find them really cool to go back and get a peek to what it looked like, what the fields looked like, what the stands looked like, what the game was like 100 years ago in this country. And we do have a strong, rich soccer culture. And, we touched on it last week here with our San Diego soccer history that we did part 2 of. And we'll continue that. But I think it's important for people to get to know the roots there.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to check that out.
Okay. Well, Dylan, I know we need to kind of wrap up because you need to be heading out. You got any plans for this week before we go?
Not soccer related off the top of my head. I don't know. I'm kind of just now settling back into my routine from getting back last
Catching
week.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'll have to check like wave schedule and stuff. So not off the top of my head, but you never know.
I'll probably check out the Euros a little bit. That's starting up.
Oh, that's right. That's this week, huh?
Thursday?
Thursday, yeah. I think the Tour de France starts this week as well, so that's kind of been on my radar. But
I'll have to talk with my mom. That's my mom's all-time favorite sporting event is the Tour de France.
Well,
She
and actually,
watches it all the time.
I'll make this recommendation to you on air in case anybody watching is also interested. I used to get up with my dad when I was a kid to like watch the live broadcast with Bob Roll like back in the aughts because we you still had to like VHS tape stuff if you wanted to record it.
Right.
But these days, I really don't have that in me. However, NBC Sports puts like really, really good, like 30 to 60-minute highlight packages on their YouTube channel. So I've the last couple of years enjoyed throwing that on, like during my morning routine or whatever, because it's not you're not going to get everything, but like it covers all the big stuff, and I feel like it's it's well executed. It seems like it's people who know cycling who edit it. So yeah, recommend that if you are interested.
Yep, I might check that out myself. My mom just loves watching the countryside. She
It's
goes
beautiful. It's one of the
like
best
twice a
parts.
year to France.
Oh, very cool. Nice. Yeah, I mean
That's just her thing. She does.
it's one of the best parts, seeing all those mountain views and stuff. Yeah, it's fun. So anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dylan, it's good to have you back. Thank
Yeah, good
you
to be back.
for all your help. And again, for those, we go live every Tuesday at 6 o'clock on YouTube. If you want to catch us live and join in on the comments, if you listen to us through normal podcasting platforms, those are usually out sometime on Wednesday for the show each week. And I think that's it. We'll be back again next week. Any last comments, Dylan?
No, just you know, uh, make sure you're getting out to protests and stuff.
Yes.
World's falling
Oh,
apart around us, even though we still enjoy our soccer. So make sure you're getting out.
be very busy here on the 4th and then on the
Oh
17th.
yes. Oh
So,
yes.
all right, Dylan. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.
See you then.